Happy Wednesday, everybody. In planning this week's video, I actually had help from one of my friends. She went out and bought some new eyeshadows and a new makeup brush set and is not sure how to use all the different types of brushes that are in it. She wanted my advice, and unfortunately she lives on the other side of the country in Washington State, so I figured this would be one of the best ways to help her, and also I'm sure she's not the only one with questions on what all the different types of makeup brushes do. Now, I'm sure most consumers out there don't have the caliber of makeup brush set that I do. I buy brush sets that have at least 20, if not more, brushes in them. There's a lot of the same types of brushes, just different sizes in mine. Most common brush set types that most of my friends and family have are, you know, the little ones you buy at like Bare Minerals or Sephora or Ulta or any of those stores, where you might have like 5 or 6 different types of brushes. So I'm not going to go into huge, long blather on and on detail about all the different types of brushes in my set. I'm just going to hit the main types of brushes, really just give you a basic overview, what they do and how to use them. We'll go over the useless brushes that if they come in your set, you might as well throw them out because I hate them and I never use them anyway. Any type of sponge tip applicators, buy a cheap brush and it's 10 times better. So don't bother with sponge applicators, just throw them out and get a decent brush. Mascara wands, I don't get why disposable ones cost about 99 cents and you can throw them out. Instead, these, if I use them, which I have had to in the past, I have to clean them, and that is one hell of a task. That's pretty much it for useless brushes. Now let's get into the actual brushes you'll probably have to deal with. First off, biggest brush in the set is always your powder brush. As you can see, there are a ton of different types out there. Powder brushes, advice is use whatever size that you want. I recommend only using it with powder. One other quick use is if you're doing an eyeshadow look and you're using dark colors and some of the colors fall down underneath the eye, use a clean powder brush. Brush the fallout away without having it smudge usually. Next brush is the blush brush. Try saying that 5 times fast. 3 different types that you run into normally. Does it really matter which one you use? No, not really. It's going to apply really the same way. Same advice as the powder one. Use whichever one you want, whichever one works best for you. Next we have your eyeshadow brushes. This is probably the next step down in size in the set that you got. There's so many different types of eyeshadow brushes out there. The most common one you'll run into, probably something around this size. Use whichever one fits your needs the best. The most common thing you'll find in those little basic brush sets is maybe 1 or 2 eyeshadow brushes. If you're putting in something all over your lid, you can use something that's along this size. If you're putting in something that you just want either on your brow bone or in your crease, you might want to think of something a little bit smaller. Another common brush that shows up in these little sets are liner brushes. Bristles are very stiff, so they're very precise when you're working. While we're talking about liner brushes, sometimes they also come out like this. They're angled, same thing, stiff bristles. Sometimes you'll see these labeled as liner brushes or as eyebrow brushes. They can be used for either. They're very good at detail work. One of the last brushes that you'll probably encounter in those little sets are lip brushes. Kind of subjective on using these. If you're doing stuff at home, sometimes it's faster just to put the lip gloss or lipstick on yourself. Lip brushes aid in being nice and precise. So if you're using like a bright red lipstick or something like that, might be a little bit better to use a brush so you can get to the nice edges of your lips. We're quickly going to cover 2 more types of brushes just so this video doesn't end up too long, but it's ones that you might run into out there. So these are foundation, or the tiny one at the end is a concealer brush. They're used in lieu of sponges or fingers for concealer and foundation. For regular everyday use, it's not something you absolutely need. One last type of brush that isn't completely common in these little sets, but you might run across, are stuff like these. These are brow combers, whatever thingy. Brow and lash combers, I guess is the best thing to call them. I rarely use them. Someone's brows are a little unruly, I kind of comb them through first before I put any type of brow product on, or if a mascara is a little clumpy, I'll run the comb through very, very lightly, just to kind of unclump the product a little bit. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, the common brush sets at Sephora and MAC and all that are just like 5 or 6 brushes, and they cover the basics. You have a powder brush, you have a blush brush, and sometimes that's one and the same in the set depending on the size. They usually give you an eyeshadow brush or 2. They might throw a lip brush in there and a liner brush usually, and then maybe a brow brush as well. One last little tip I have is no matter the brush, no matter where you bought it from, make sure you take care of it. And if it's ones you use just on yourself, you should clean them every once in a while. Keep them clean, they'll last longer, and they'll work better for longer. One last thing I've been asked is, where is a good place to buy brushes? What type should I buy? For someone at home, just buy a nice little set from Sephora or MAC, or something like that. You don't necessarily need a brush set from Dior. I really don't think they're going to work any better than the set you bought at Sephora or MAC. If you put the investment into your brushes and buy a set from MAC or Sephora or Dior or whoever sells them, take care of them. You spent the money, make sure they last, and you get your money's worth out of it. I hope these little tips helped on what those brushes do in the set that you just bought. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of the week.